things are fire.
Facts. Hot fire.
This is the Drop Podcast, where we talk golfing in the Garden State. I'm Mike Poro, and this is Ryan Hager. And this episode is presented by the Law Office of Mallon and Tranger.
What's going on, everyone? The weather is starting to get colder, but Mike's still able to get out there. He's putting out some content. If you haven't checked it out, go on our YouTube page. You can find us on YouTube at the Drop Golf Podcast. I also want to thank everyone for being generous with me last week on my poor math. Hopefully we get it right today and go from there. We do have some big news, Mike and I, to share with you guys. The big news is we're on iTunes now. That's what's up. So you can listen to us on Spotify and iTunes at the Drop Podcast. If you haven't yet, hit that follow button, like and subscribe. Lastly, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter. Those handles are at @thedrop_pod. Like, subscribe, follow, and listen along.
Let's get after it.
All right.
Let's go.
So, Mike, I think the first place we need to start is with the golf course rankings, because I think that was the big bugaboo from last week, and obviously I had some poor math. So I did some reworking of it. I put a new, same format, still using the Google form and the Google Sheets. Put it on the website for everyone to have. Little Mill's up there. But these are the categories that I came up with after thinking about it and what needs to be. So this equals 100 points. I am positive in that. And here they are. I felt like the golf course needed to be the most points. So that's out of 50 points. And we broke the golf course down into 5 categories, all of them being 10 points. Course conditions, 1. Pace of play, 2. Course maintenance, 3. The difficulty of the course, 4. And the practice facility, 5.
So let's start there. Let's start there before you get into it. You nailed it. You nailed it with those 5. With those 5 subcategories underneath the golf course, you nailed it. Because when I think about rating a golf course, there's no doubt, and I know I've harped on this multiple times, that is the number one thing that I think the majority of golfers look for. And out of 100 points, to say that's 50% of a rating is spot on. And then when you broke it down into those specific 5, course conditions, pace of play, court maintenance, difficulty, practice facilities, perfect. It's simple, it's easy. Well done on that part.
Appreciate it. I definitely took, when I was thinking about it, I know that you've been harping on, you originally wanted this to be out of 3 categories: golf course, practice, 1, 2, 3. So I wanted it to be the biggest, and I felt like 50% was a good. You go to a golf course to play the golf course, right? We're playing golf. That needs to be at minimum half of why you go to a place, right?
Yep.
So that's kind of why I came up with that there. That, again, 50 points or 50% of it being the golf course. The second is the off-course amenities. And I broke these into 3 categories. Again, all 10 points each. The pro shop, the food and beverage, I guess we could call it, but the 19th hole, the halfway house, the cart person, kind of putting those all in one, because I think they are a unit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, totally agree.
And then accessibility, course organization. Now, again, we talked about this last week with the accessibility. If we're at, with Little Mill, we wouldn't be on there if Troy doesn't invite us. So accessibility is kind of a flexible part of that category, but I think it's something where if it is a public course, that can go into that part of the ranking system. You know what I mean? 100%. If it's not there, then fine. We'll just work on the organization of the place.
Yeah, and again, when I looked at those 30, again, I thought that was very good, and I don't know where else people may nitpick at that 30% of the golf course, but I thought that was a perfectly fair way to put 3 solid categories that some people do care about into the mix here of rating the overall experience.
Right. So the only thing that I have is that's 30, and then our next one is worth 20 points. And I guess in theory, I would have liked to have it, like I was trying to have it be 25-25, but I like having all the categories be 10, and then having the golf course be 50% of it, and then this is 30. So so that's the second the second 30%, and then the last 20% to get us to 100 is going to be our personal experience, your personal experience, my personal experience. And these categories, like this category is broken up twice. You have the on-course vibe, and then what is your personal opinion? And as we talked about last week as well, we could have very different personal opinions on different parts of the golf course. We play very different games. So, you might see a different part of the course than I'm seeing. So, yours is going to be fairway greens, maybe a little rough. Mine's going to be the trees, the bunkers, the rough. And then when I get to the fairway, I can be like, ooh, this is nicely mowed. But yeah, so that's how I broke it up. In that, personal experience was 20 points. Again, I didn't want to go 15 for one of them and 5 for one of the off-course amenities, but I feel like I really like how I broke this down, like you said, and again, having everything be worth 10, coming up with 100 points, the golf course being the majority of it. I like what we got here.
Yeah, and listen, I think when I look at that, I would find it really hard, unless it's just a person that's trying to be a complainer or someone just trying to be negative. I think the way you did that is perfect. Every category is 10 points. The bulk of the rating system comes from the golf course, and then you have 2 subcategories of off-course amenities being around 30 points with 3 different topics, the personal experience, having 20 points broken up into 2 different categories. Like I thought that you did a really, really good job with that. And I know I can be a tough critic on my own. But I think the way you did that is very, very good. I have no problem commending you and giving you some props when necessary, because I know that I can be a little difficult at times. So I look at that and I say, like, I don't even know where I would critique it, and if I can't critique it, who's pretty tough on people in terms of like nitpicking at little details, like that's pretty spot on. And I think that's a very good report card for people to look at after they play places, and then even share them with us. Because once we get this out there, people can look at it. They can say, hey, listen, use your report card, played X course. We got it at an 84. Love it. Let's hear why. Let's look at your report card and see why. And I think as we continue, hopefully that's one of the things that's shared often with us. Like, hey, listen, played here. Here's my grade. Let me know if you get out there and see what yours is. Because that's the kind of goal here, is to open up that line of communication with us, the public, the audience, saying, hey, you tell us some good spots that we need to go check out too. And then let's kind of talk a little bit about it. So I commend you on that. I think that report card is very good. I think it's fair, and I think it's easily justifiable in every aspect of those categories.
Well, thank you. I do. That does actually mean a lot. And again, I know how hard you could be, and how blunt and how direct. Direct's maybe the right word. So I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not in the business of sugarcoating things. I will tell you how it is, because I want to know the truth. I don't want someone to be like, oh, Mike, you're doing a great job. Meanwhile, the audio is terrible on it, or whatever the case ends up being. Like, I like the cold hard truth, because to me, that's where we all can have a honest, upright conversation. For sure. So, listen, you nailed it. I think it's good. I can't wait to apply it for the next time we get out there and play.
Good. I still think, so everyone, this is live up on our website, which is linked in our Instagram page. It's a Google Sites page, so it does have a fairly long website name. But you could certainly go and find it and take a look at the Google Sheet's going to be linked up there. I think, Mike, we talked about this last time, it being locked, so the outside, like this is going to be for you and I to use, but I'm going to leave the rating there, guys, so you can kind of hand do your rating. We'll leave our sheet will be Mike and I in the courses that we play, but you can certainly use this as well. And then, and as Mike said, you have the format here. You go play somewhere and say, hey, I played this. I gave it an 84. You guys gave it an 89. Where did we differ? You can look at it and then, DM us and we'll talk it out for sure.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of put a bow on this is I think this also shows, how much we are invested in making sure the best thing goes out there. Because if you think about when we first opened up this conversation, it was October 19th. So this episode will come out, December 4th, 7th? I don't even know, 7th or 8th. And today's 7th. December 3rd. So when you think about how long we spent making sure that it was the right thing before we thoroughly released everything, we're invested. We care, and we want to make sure that what is coming out is well thought out and is the best product that we can do.
For sure. Yeah. I especially after last week, I had a lot of anxiety about the embarrassment of my poor math and going. So I had a lot of Tito's to help me get through. But Tito's is not a sponsor of this podcast, by the way. But Tito's, if you're listening, DMs are open for you. So
not a sponsor yet.
It's not.
Never know.
So definitely hit us up. Love the Tito's transfusion. So we can certainly collab if you'd like to. But anyway, yeah, it was, we took a long time because we care about it. And this is kind of a meaningful point if other people in the state are going to use something. We don't just want to be too hackadoodle-doos with this. So there we go. All right, next topic we had on. Mike, I was asked, how long should you wait before hitting up on the group in front of you? And I know my answer. Let me hear yours first. Or talk it out with me.
Loaded question.
Sure.
Because I don't want people not to invite us if we're just going to start rifling missiles at people on the green. So let's put it this way. Just like anything, you'd like to forewarn somebody that if your proper golf etiquette is that if you constantly are seeing someone stare you down from the fairway or the tee box, that either you step aside on the next hole or you step aside on the next shot to let them go through. And I preface that by saying that because if it's jam-packed and the tee sheet is nonstop and there's nowhere to go, then you yourself need to slow down. Okay, then you're going too fast. But if you've looked ahead and you see that there's open hole after open hole after open hole, and they are still being ignorant in terms of not sliding out of the way, then we have a little bit of a problem. And I think the way I would approach that is I can be known to have a big mouth. I can be known to be loud. So I would probably give them the courtesy, if I'm not riding up to the green, up to the tee box when they're there, to hurry off my last green so they see me. I would probably give it the old yo real loud from the fairway, the tee box. Like, can we pick it up? Something along those lines so people know that there's open space in front of you and you need to go. Now, if you're still going to be that guy or that woman that is not getting out of the way and you know that you are slowing up the pace of the golf course, I will wait a little bit before I hopefully dribble one into you. I'm not firing one over your head. I'm not firing one while you're on the green. But my goal is to roll one up on you to say, hey, listen, it's time to get going. Now, if that didn't work, maybe there's a ranger. Maybe I'm calling the golf course. But I like to think that golf course etiquette and the people on the course understand that pace of play for a lot of people is very important. And all that means is just keeping up with the group in front of you. And it's really that simple. And if nobody's out there, just step aside. Just step aside. But I can't say off the top of my head if I've ever fired one into a foursome and it went over their heads, or I fired one on the green. I maybe beelined it from the green to the tee box to make sure that you knew I was there, and maybe I skidded the cart out a little bit to make some noise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that move. Hey, we're here.
Yeah, like, hey, still waiting. So I think that's how I would go about it. But again, I don't know. I don't know that. I mean, that's how I would handle it. Why, you got a different strategy?
Yeah, no, not really. I think
you're firing missiles. You're just firing. No, you're going to fire missiles. Hey, listen, you're 30 seconds into the round. You're behind pace. I'm firing my 3. We're right at your back. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying I've never done that, but that's as I've gotten older, I've gotten wiser, and things like calling. I used to think that like calling the golf course, especially if you know that there's a ranger out there, or even someone that's like a starter who can just run out real quick. If you call and be like, hey, there's 4 holes in front of these people and they won't move. I used to think that was like snitching, and I'd kind of handle it myself. But yeah, I would agree. Like, you got to give. I think about Shark River. And if you go on the back, you're coming down the 11th hole, that big par 5, and you can kind of see all the holes there. You got 12 is the par 3, 13's a short par 4, 14's the par 3 coming back at you, and you can see the next 3-4 holes in front, and then 15's coming back across it. So you can see all those holes, and if it's that late in the round, maybe there's nothing you can do about it. But if you are starting on the back at using this as the example, you know really early if you're backed up or not, and you should have, again, skid to a stop, like you said, give them a yo, give them like, let's speed it up, like give a
warning.
Give a warning.
A warning.
Yeah, for sure. Like there definitely needs to be some kind of warning. You can't just fire away at them. I also don't think you ever hit onto someone. Like if they're standing on the green and I'm in the middle of the fairway hitting onto the green, that's a hard no every time, because someone's going to get hurt that way. But like you said, if you could dribble one into a group that's like standing around, or they've been just meandering in the middle of the fairway, or they're just leaving, and you can hit it and it'll catch up to them, and they might like hear it land and they've kind of gotten ahead of it to give a point. I think there's a time and a place for that, for sure. I'd also, again, after that warning, and if they haven't changed their behavior in a hole or two, like I don't have a hard fast rule on it, but if I give you a yo on hole 3 and by hole 5 you haven't done anything about it, or you haven't let us play through, then there's an issue. You know what I mean? Like then something drastic needs to happen.
Yeah, and it also might get to a point where you say, listen, if you're just going to be that stubborn, I'm just cutting in front of you, and I'll come back and play those other holes later on. Because if you're not getting the point, well, I guess I'll have to show you what I'm trying to say without verbalizing every little thing I'm trying to do here. So I might, if it's that bad and I've waited on the 4th and the 5th hole, hell, I'm just going straight to 6.
Sure.
I'll come back and play 4 and 5 later.
And play, and come back. And sometimes you don't have that opportunity, so that's the only problem that I have with that. If you're playing in the morning, what are you going to come back and play 4 or 5 after they've had like every morning tee time on a Saturday? So so again, that's not perfect as well either. You can certainly do that if you teed off at 5 o'clock and you're trying to get 18 in the summer, where you got to be off the course at 9, but you can hustle around and play those at 8:30. Certainly, that there's no problem with that. Nobody's on the course there at 8:30, but yeah, I definitely think. I definitely think that there's a time and a place for it. I will say, like you said to start, I don't want to not be invited because everyone thinks that I'm a hothead and going to hit over everybody's head. That's certainly like I've only done that at a public. There's 2 incidents in my mind that I can think of that I did that where I did hit up onto the group, And again, it was off the drive. They just wouldn't leave the fairway. They're just sitting there chit-chatting. And again, talking about like proper etiquette, where like if you're four guys walking or four people walking, you don't all need to walk to one person's ball and then all need to walk to the next ball. Like, you can keep the conversation going across the fairway. Or if you're in carts, drop one person off and then go to the next person, and you guys can walk to each other's, like, this person, like, drop person A off, person B drive to his ball, person A hits and then walks over while person B is hitting, and then you both jump in the cart. Like, that's not really hard to do. The only way I'd say otherwise is if like someone dribbles it and it doesn't make sense, like you're 100 yards past. But like waiting for, hey, you're away, so I'm gonna wait for you, dude. You're a yard in front of me. Just hit the ball.
Yeah, I think, and again, that's what it comes down to. Is like course awareness. Like, let's know our surroundings a little bit here. Let's kind of take a peek. What's going on? You don't need to be tunnel vision like you're going on the PGA Tour. Like, it's your turn to hit your shot. I'm not saying don't focus, and I'm not saying don't care, and I'm not saying rush, but it's ready golf. So if you know what your number is, and your buddy's still looking for the ball, and you can play. And then it's the same thing if it just falls under the golf etiquette thing. If I am too slow because you're playing super fast, put your pride aside. Hey, you're playing way faster than I am. Go in front of me. This way we both can enjoy our round.
Right, because you don't want to be, I don't know what pride would have to do with it, because you don't have to, what pride? Is someone just plays faster than you do, so just let them play through. I don't understand. It's so much more enjoyable for you. You don't have to be frustrated with the people behind you, like, these guys are up our ass. And then we don't have to be frustrated, we being, I'm assuming I'm in the back group, don't have to be frustrated with these guys can't move. Yeah, it's just a more enjoyable round.
I say pride because I feel like a lot of people, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I agree that it's pride. Like, people do it for pride.
Yeah, I'm afraid to admit that I'm a slow player. Like, maybe I am slow, and if I'm slow, I'm sorry. Go the hell in front of me. Mm-hmm. Rather than being like, no, I play super fast, and I get out there and play with you, and it's 4 hours and 30 minutes. So, I mean, I think that's the best way to handle that. And I think, I don't even know what other angle you and I could touch on, but golf etiquette, course awareness, those are the two things I'd specifically harp on if you're playing slow golf.
No doubt.
Tell me what you think about when you think about chasing aces.
Hole-in-ones.
No doubt. 100%. Chasing Aces is a company that was launched with the idea that everybody is welcome on the golf course. But let's be honest, who doesn't stop talking about aces? Because that's been a topic of conversation here on this show, hasn't it?
It has. We've talked about it quite a bit, actually. Quite a few times.
Right. Let me tell you about this company, Chasing Aces.
Okay.
I was on Instagram, scrolling through, saw somebody that had great gear. Commented on it. DM them. Say, hey, listen, love your stuff. Things are fire.
Hot fire.
Lo and behold, the owner of the company reaches back out to me. And now we start talking. We're going back and forth. I like your gear. He likes, he likes the things that we are doing and how quickly things are growing. He says to me, I want to be a sponsor of your show. I want to be involved. I like the direction of what you're doing. I say, okay, well, listen, let's talk a little bit here. We go back and forth on some things, and lo and behold, we got a new sponsor on the show, Chasing Aces Golf. Jeff and his company have some amazing gear. The pictures, I don't think, do it justice. I can't wait to get my hands on some to kind of give you a first-hand take on what it feels like, what it looks like, and the type of materials that it's made out of. It's something that not only looks great, but has a phenomenal name. When you talk about Chasing Aces, let's be real. When we're on the golf course, who is not chasing aces? That's what we're all trying to get. Let's get that hole-in-one. And with a name like that and the gear they put out, I mean, I think that's a pretty fitting name if you ask me.
Dude, that name is fucking phenomenal. Like, What a great name to come up with. Who doesn't? And we all play golf to get an ace. Like, we're all chasing it. And whether you've had 0 or 15, you just want more.
Chasing Aces has hats, performance polos, and t-shirts that keep you looking sharp from the clubhouse to the tee box. If it wasn't for what I saw, I might not have reached out, but what I saw and the name on top of it was a grand slam. Sometimes you hit singles, sometimes you hit doubles. These guys, not only did they have the product, but they had the name to back it up. To find the best stuff, go check them out. ChasingAcesGolf.com. They're on Instagram at ChasingAcesGolf. Even the best are still chasing aces.
All right, Mike. Keeping it on the golf course, I would assume, are the best golfer of your golfing friends, is what I would imagine. Being as good at golf as you. Depending on the day, it's the same for me, but I think they would agree that I usually have better days than that. But we're also not super competitive. So we'll be like, oh, pick it up, that's good. And you know, the debate I want to ask you is, if you're playing with somebody, you got a 5-5-10 game going on, little Nassau, and you tell someone the putt is good, they putt it anyway. Like, you're walking off the green, they go ahead and putt it, and they miss. I'm not sure how I want to ask the question, but what are your thoughts on it? Tell me, is the putt good? If I say it's good no matter what? Or because I'm walking away, is it just like practice? Like, what's the...
Listen, that's a great topic. That's a great topic. It's a great conversation. Here's my take on it. I think anytime a putt is conceded, it's good. Now, that's for the match. So if you and I were playing a match, I tell you it's good. For our match, you either won the hole or we half the hole, right? Now, when I'm keeping my score, my overall score, like you and I have talked about many times, we like to go ball and hole. We still may putt the putt. If I miss the putt, I'm counting it towards my overall score as a missed putt. I'm not saying, oh, the 5-footer that Ryan gave me for our match also counts towards my handicap. If you do that, I want to play you. Because then that means your handicap is probably lower than it really should be, because you typically probably don't make those putts, and that means less shots I have to give you. I think that's how it needs to be approached. If it's conceded in the match, it's good, no ifs, ands, or buts. But for my overall score, I still may want to putt it, and if I miss it, I didn't shoot 79, I shot 80, or whatever the case ends up being. I think that is the most fair way to go about it, because you can't give somebody a putt, then rescind it because they practiced and missed it. Then you should never have given it to them if you know they're a terrible putter. Because I can tell you what, not being a great putter firsthand, I don't care if my ball is 12 inches, 6 inches, or on the lip. My dad has never given me that putt.
I agree 100%. And I'm going to say this, that I started with being on the other side. That if I give you the putt, you miss the putt, you didn't take advantage of the gift I gave you. Like, I gave you, that's good. And I interpret it as, if you want it, that putt's good. And by you picking up your ball, you're accepting the gift, and we're moving on. But by putting it, you're saying, fuck your gift, I'm going to putt this out. I've since changed my mind in that first part. As the guy giving the putt, it can be used for, like, sometimes, like, you know how in a match, early on, you may be giving a lot of putts, even from 5-6 feet, be like, that's good, pick it up. And then later in the match, not giving that 2-foot putt, now you're in the person's head. So it could be a little strategic, but I don't think of it as being a gift anymore. It's a gamble now. It's not a gift, it's a gamble. I'm betting, in my mind, that you'd make that putt. If I know you're a bad putter, I should make you putt it out. But that's the gamble. That's the hey, let's move on. Pick that up. And if you miss it, then I gambled and lost. You know what I mean? Like it's not. So I've changed my mindset from it being a gift to you to now it's on me, and I'm gambling on your putting stroke. And that mindset change. Then I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to look at it. Now I'm with you. I feel like if you want to putt that for your own score, like it's good for our match, but you want to put it on. I also agree to that, because if you're going to put a score into the hand, like if we have a match going on and I won that, doesn't matter. I won it up 1 or whatever. You can still put it into the handicap system, and it took you not 79 strokes to get around the course. It took you 80 to get around the course. So, like you said, I've again, that change in thinking from when I originally had this argument a few weeks ago, or thought about it even a few weeks ago. And not that I just magically came up with this. Like I've talked about this for years with different people. And inevitably, when you give someone a putt on the course and they take it, someone even if it's joking will be like, "Oh, mark it down. There's another one." Like, But like, it's that change. It's not a gift. It's a gamble. For me, that's the big.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately really in the match, and that's why I prefaced it that way, because in the match, it's good. But when you go to post a score, that's the big thing. That's why golf is so great, because it's a handicap system where you and I and any two people can always have a match because there's a handicap. So even if you're really good or really bad, that's what the equalizer is in the whole thing there. So if you want to put lower scores in because somebody gives you 18 putts throughout a round, that's fine. But when you're constantly going in your wallet to pay the bets because you keep losing and losing and losing, I don't want to hear about it. Stop putting fake scores in or lower scores to say you're something you're not. Golf is hard enough to hit the ball. Why are we lying about our handicap? But again, like I talked about earlier, like your pride gets in the way because you want to say you are better than you are.
Right. You want to say you're a 9 and not a 12. You want to say you're a 15, not a 20. You want to say you're a 2 and not a 7.
And then if that's the case, I don't want to hear about it when you constantly lose money. Now, I will also say this, though, because not only can that be used one way, it can also be used the other, where that sandbagger knows his partner's in for 4, and he's got a 3-footer, and now all of a sudden he 3-putts it for 5. Instead of making a par or birdie, whatever the case is, now he says, "Oh, my partner's in 4 for 3. My 4 doesn't matter. I 3-putt. Now I made a double, bogey, whatever the case is." And now they're going and they post the double, and now instead of them being the 5, they're really an 8, and now it's skewed the other way. But I think that's where it's important that golf, it is an honest man's game, honest woman's game. It's an honest game. Whatever you make, you make. Let's not be that person that skews the whole system, because we all know nobody likes playing with sandbaggers. Nobody likes it. It's annoying. It's not fun when the same person is always winning every weekend, every tournament, because your handicap is constantly a 9. But when you play in the tournament, you shoot 75.
Yeah.
But then I go check your handicap and the 75 is non-existent. So
Mike,
let's not
what
be
you
that
just
person.
said blew my mind, and I want to ask you, how many people are doing that on the golf course? Because I know that people are sandbaggers.
More than you think. I'll say this. I was that guy at one point. I can be brutally honest and admit that I was that sandbagger that made sure my index always hovered around 5. My index. Because I was always afraid that if I put all the real scores in, I didn't play enough to maintain the index that I have. So since COVID and since last 3-4 years, I've been super diligent in putting in whatever I shoot in the handicap, whether it's really good or really bad, to see exactly what my true handicap is. Because like a lot of people, I knew that my index currently is a 1.6. It is very, very, very hard to play to a 1.6 every single time. It's impossible.
It's with a wife and kids and a job and like not a member at a place. Like you got to play 2-3 times a week, at least hitting balls 2-3 times a week to maintain that.
Right. So I know that it's harder to do that, but that's the system. And to be fair to the system, if I shoot 69 or if I shoot 86, like that needs to go in. So I can honestly say, and this is always a big topic in my family, that whatever you shoot, we stalk each other's scores to make sure that score goes in, because when we have our matches, we don't like not getting the right amount of shots, or I want to make sure I'm giving the right amount of shots.
Right. Gotcha. So that's blowing my mind right now, because I didn't think, to me, that's psychotic. Now, if you're going to be a sandbagger and at the end of your round, you shot an 80, but you post an 85, that's what I think the majority of sandbaggers are doing, or people that want to post something higher than that without any reason other than this is what they want to post. And I have a question for you I want to ask in a second, but I want to finish this. So that's what I thought. To me, missing a 3-footer and then missing the comebacker, so you add 2 strokes to that hole because it didn't matter for the match, that to me is, I didn't think that there was that level. I'm too naive, I guess. I didn't think there was that level of deceit in the game of golf.
And it may not be that extreme. It may be I missed the 3-footer and just make bogey. But then on the next hole, it's 18. I know we won the match. I won my $20. I may lose concentration a little bit and I tug at OB. No big deal. I'll just take double. And now I'm posting 83 when I probably should be shooting 77.
Okay. See, that's crazy to me. I didn't think that people would think like that on the golf course. I always assumed that it was, I'm going to post this after, and I'm just going to post a higher score. But as you said, you're going to stalk your family and make sure, hey, you post, like at the end of the round, you're adding up the scorecard, maybe having a drink after. Hey, you're 77 today? Yeah, nice. And then afterwards, you did it to me. We were driving home. You texted me, hey, you didn't post your score yet. Well, no, I got in the car.
It's funny you say that, right? Because my dad legitimately called me today and said, you didn't check my handicap. You didn't see what I shot today. Because I always text my dad to see what he shot and either bust his balls or say nice round. And I said, yeah, I've been busy today. I haven't checked. He goes, oh, I shot 75. You know what the first comment back was? Did you post it? And he said, yeah, it's posted. You didn't see what I shot yesterday. I said, oh, I saw you shot 89. I just didn't want to bust your chops. So I knew. But that's where I think it's very important, especially in this game that we all love, is to be honest. If you make a 5, you make a 5. You make an 8, you make an 8. If you make a birdie, you make a birdie. Like, we should all be trying to play the best golf we can, because it is so damn hard. It is so damn hard. So if we are on a hot streak, enjoy it. Enjoy it. Because I'm going to promise you this. The next round you go out there and you shank one, your mind is now completely in the gutter.
Yeah. So now let me ask you this kind of on this topic. You're playing with buddies. It's a fun round. You're doing a little more drinking than you are. Like, you don't even have a match going on. It's just a couple buddies out there enjoying playing golf. Maybe guys you haven't seen in a while, just getting together. Player A picks up that putt, 5-footer that they were given. All right, the group's behind us. Like, let's pick up and move on. And that happens a few times through the round to player A. What are your thoughts on player A recognizing that, and rather than posting what he has on his scorecard, saying something like, there was that 5-footer and then another 4-footer, and then there was that slider, and then that one, and there's like 6 or 7 putts through the round that you were given, but they weren't like tap in gimmies. Like they had a lot of meat left on the bone. But because you were getting pushed from behind, you were playing slow or whatever. And instead of that person posting, again, at 77, they posted an 80. They took half of those putts or a few of those putts. They were given 7 of them. They took 3 of them and just added because they were like, I'm not going to make all 7 of those. What are your thoughts on that? Is that sandbagging? B, is that like maybe it's not sandbagging, but maybe it's no, don't do that. You know what I mean? Like what's the?
It's a great question. It's a great question.
Yeah.
And I'll say
what kind
this.
of questions I ask.
I say this is, I think as the player that's constantly being given the putts, you need to kind of stand up for yourself a little bit. If my buddy keeps giving me like, yo, I get it, you want to give it to me, but I got to putt it. Like it's a 5-footer. I haven't putted one in a while. Because, I think it goes back to if you don't putt it at all, you got to kind of take it. You know, like I don't know, because that's when the posting of the score becomes, you know, a little skewed on both sides. Because what if you did make it? And what if you didn't make it? And that's why I think like the ball in hole category is super important. If it is a casual round ride like that, maybe you don't post the score. Maybe you're fair to the system in general and say, hey, listen, I was given too many putts. We screwed around. I didn't take the proper drops. I'm not posting 77 or even 85 because we didn't really play a true round of golf. I didn't play golf. I messed around with my buddies. Maybe you go the complete opposite route and say, hey, listen, I'm just not posting it. I'm going to be fair to the system. It wasn't a real round. I didn't follow the real rules. It can't be one way and it can't be the other.
Okay. All right. And are you... I think the majority of the people are playing then those unpostable rounds, if that's what you're saying.
I do. I think that's why a lot of people's handicaps are lower than they should be. Because I think a lot of times they're given their putts and maybe instead of it being 85, it's 81.
Yeah. So now I'll open up and say that was me a couple years ago. I realized that I was like, when I started this, again, it's pre-COVID, but not terribly before. I started to recognize that like I was trying to get into being a more, I don't want to say rule-abiding, but like a more serious golfer without playing in, like you're a serious golfer that plays in tournaments. I'm trying to be a more serious golfer and following a little bit more of the rules. Like I said, like started to go ball and hole more often and that sort of thing. But what I had found when I had started thinking about it was that I was playing those casual rounds and I was getting given 7 or 8 putts a round and then realizing that I'm not making all 8 of those. So I was trying to come up with a number that was fair in like, okay, maybe I'm not making all 7, but I'm also probably not missing all 7 either. It was just super interesting to me. And then like a buddy jokingly called me a sandbagger. And I was like, I'm not trying to be a sandbagger. I'm trying to be fair to everybody, both myself, but also to everybody else. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like my, that was kind of a thing that I was like, not struggling with, or I was just dealing with, you know, and it was just something that was super, a little interesting to kind of think about. But, again, we're ball and hole now, or like you said, I like that. Like when we're playing a match, it's a gamble for some. You give me a putt, that's fine. I still may putt it, and if I miss it, then that's on you. All right, everyone, that's going to be it for Mike and I, but we are going to send you to an interview we did with Ryan Hager. Ryan is the director of instruction at Plainfield Country Club, one of New Jersey's definitely top 10. I think it's usually ranked in the top 5 every year. He won the NJPGA Teacher of the Year. He is a absolute stud instruction-wise on Instagram. I mean, he's got all drills for, there's not one thing. If you have a golf issue, go to his Instagram and check it out. I mean, he's got so many drills and lessons, and he's a phenomenal player in his own right, and quite an interesting story about him as he's growing up. So we were able to chat with him for a little bit, which was awesome to meet him and and chat with him, get to know him a little bit, have him tell us a little bit about his story and his journey into how he got to Plainfield and director of instruction and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to send you to that interview.
The Law Office of Mallon and Tranger. Tom Mallon and Randy Tranger are board-certified trial attorneys who share more than 40 years of legal experience. They specialize in personal injury matters, workers' compensation cases, and criminal and municipal defense. As certified trial attorneys, they have recovered millions of dollars on behalf of people injured in accidents and employees injured at work. They have offices conveniently located in Point Pleasant and Freehold. For skilled and personalized legal representation, call Mallon and Tranger at 732-780-0230 or check out their website at tmallonlaw.com. Not only are they good people, they're good golfers too.
So tonight's guest, I mean, man, we are beyond fortunate to have someone like this come on our show and talk to us and give us, 20 or 30 minutes of his time. Tonight's guest is Ryan Hager, Director of Instruction at Plainfield Country Club. He was recently recognized by Golf Digest as the youngest of the nation's top golf instructors under the age of 40. He's been awarded Teacher of the Year by the NJPGA. His best finish this year was finishing tied for second in the Lincoln Charity Clam Bake at Hollywood Golf Club, one of Ryan's favorites, going 73, 73, 70. And I think the one thing for me, more so than anything, is there's no doubt that you're definitely the best follow on Instagram. I mean, the content that you put out, like I feel myself just like scrolling through that stuff and getting in a mirror and then just start like practicing it as if I'm like thinking I'm the next Tiger getting out there and trying to hit it around. But I appreciate you coming on and taking a few minutes of your time tonight, because I'm sure there might be better things for you to do. So I appreciate it, pal.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, guys.
So to begin, Rye, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey from like where you started as a kid, through high school, college, and then kind of to, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I'm a New Jersey transplant. I grew up in Rochester, New York. More of a hockey player than a golfer as a kid, and was in the market for a summer sport that wasn't as physically demanding as hockey, but still something you could kind of be competitive with. And I guess kind of took to it fairly quick, got the bug, and really got into it. High school, kind of a late starter, so never really had aspirations of playing golf in college or anything like that, but soon kind of had an interest in making it a career and found out about the if everyone listening is aware, there's a PGA golf management program that's offered at I want to say like 16 universities across the country, and one of them was at Penn State, which is a 3-hour drive from home. So decided that was for me, gave it a shot. I'm actually going there tomorrow to speak in front of the student society that's there now. There's roughly like 120 students or so in that major. And that's kind of what led me to New Jersey. We had to do some internships, and I did one at home, and then decided I didn't want to go home again. So I kind of looked for somewhere with a good golf course and a strong mentor that I could kind of start to learn from. And Plainfield and my boss, Scott Paris, was a great match. So I ended up coming here for a 3-month internship, and then just kind of kept coming back and never left.
Talk about stepping in it.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's a great that's yeah. I mean, you pick one spot. It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty lucky. The connections and stuff from Plainfield. I worked for. I say I kind of have worked there my whole career, but I had one 8-month stint at Baltusrol, kind of in the middle of my time at Plainfield, and I went from intern to assistant, and then there was really nowhere for me to continue to grow at that time at Plainfield. So I took a job at Baltusrol, and then made the decision that teaching was for me, and that rather than becoming a head pro, I wanted to be a director of instruction or a teaching pro somewhere. And kind of right around the time I came to that realization, the current DOI that was at Plainfield decided that he was going to go more the head pro route, and left to sort of pursue that. And I just kind of fell into the right place at the right time. So I say I've never worked anywhere else, but that's not true.
Okay. I mean, I was at
Baltusrol for a little bit.
Those are two pretty good ones. And it's funny how life works that way, just kind of, you step into one, and it's exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mentioned I'm going to speak tomorrow. A lot of what I'll speak about, actually going with the director of instruction from Baltusrol. The two of us are giving a presentation on like career development and specialization, and I guess kind of early career growth and things like that to those students. And I think, working for the right people that connect you to more of the right people and things along those lines has just been huge for career-wise for me. And, I think that's kind of why those courses were so on my radar.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been very lucky.
I like that you had the forethought. I don't know if a lot of 19, 20, 21, 22, however old you were, think about having a good mentor in place. It's not necessarily like something that I think a young kid can kind of get behind. Everyone usually thinks that hey, I'm just coming out of college, I know what I can do, like let me go do it, instead of like I want to find somebody. I think that's something great to instill in youngsters, that like find someone who's going to teach you the ropes, not who's going to be a good mentor, not do everything and tell you how to do it, but kind of show you how to do it. I think that forethought for a young kid is really shows maturity.
Well, thanks. A lot of that though was some of that was me, and honestly, most of it though was almost forced upon you. I'm certainly biased, but I believe Penn State has the best of all of those golf management programs, and one of the reasons is that they kind of motivate you to find people like that, and they make it very clear that that there's just no better way to I guess expedite your career or figure out what the right fit is for you than finding somebody like that. So there's actually a nice program where I'll soon get paired with a mentor from school. Now I am the mentor, and I kind of help to nudge that person in the right direction or answer their questions or whatever. So it was made very clear to me while I was still a student that is something that was important. So I kind of took that to heart, and
good.
There's no doubt that's a great leader in terms of what your conversation, I'm sure, is going to consist of tomorrow, is like not being afraid to ask for help. And I think kids nowadays, Ryan and I are both teachers, so we see it firsthand in terms of like kids sometimes feeling like they have all the answers to life, and they're 15, 16 years old. And sometimes they're embarrassed just to simply ask, like, well, what can I do here? And you being that person that, some kid may be able to relate to, and then you can build a friendship, a relationship with them, just helps them, like you've already said, kind of expedite what they're looking to do, have someone to lean on in case something gets difficult, and even just someone to vent to if they're frustrated with things.
Certainly. And like I said, it was was almost like a class for us where we were told, like, you know, you have a avenue. Yeah. You've got an avenue to find, you know, someone like that, and how important it was. So, you know, I think kids can kind of roll their eyes at that sort of thing, but it was made very, very apparent that, you know, that was a good thing and a good resource. And so we were lucky to have that, and certainly took advantage.
So let's kind of dive a little bit into the golf thing. For our audience that may not understand the difference between what a DOI is compared to the head pro, because maybe some courses don't have a DOI and it's just strictly the head pro kind of just engulfing that title as well. Or just simply not having it. And if they wanted a lesson, they just go to the head pro. Like, why don't you kind of explain to the audience the difference in both those roles?
Yeah. I would say most clubs, they don't have that position. It's a very different role, I would say, where your general head pro or director of golf oversees all of the golf operations, spanning from, merchandising in the golf shop, running events, the day-to-day shop sales, phone calls, tee sheet. Oftentimes you're overseeing the bag room and the starter and pace of play. And on top of that, in your free time, you teach lessons. And I realized pretty quickly in my career that all of that stuff was not for me. And so I went more the route of a teaching professional, which some courses have. And then oftentimes, if you have a teaching professional or more than one, there's someone who specifically oversees the instruction portion of the golf operation. And that is exactly what it sounds like. You organize the group and the individual instruction. You oversee, if you do have a staff of teachers, you would oversee them. A lot of times you do some educational things for the rest of the staff. So like at Plainfield, we do what are supposed to be monthly instructional meetings. We have a hard time sometimes balancing the busyness of the club and finding time to do that. But making sure that, the assistant pros, the head pro, the director of golf, anyone that's going to be involved with teaching is kind of on the same page, not necessarily teaching the same things, but just so that you're sure that the quality of the instruction that's given, no matter who it's from, is good, and will help, members and guests and whoever's taking lessons get a little better.
So to piggyback that, at Plainfield, you're not the only one that people could get a lesson from. They could go see Scott. They could go see the assistant, as well as seeing you. Or are you the sole person that's giving the lessons?
So we have our, now he's more the COO of the club. He's also the director of golf, but Scott does very little teaching these days. We have a head pro named Sean, and then we have 3 assistants and an intern or 2. And anyone that's a PGA professional, so not the interns, is listed as available to teach lessons. And yeah, you can take a lesson from anyone that you like. The thing about that is, for members, when they go to our lesson reservations page, those guys just aren't able to open their book as often because of all the other things I mentioned. So as far as availability goes, I'm kind of sort of always there. I'm pretty busy these days. So, if you wake up on a Tuesday and think, I'll go see what Ryan's doing today, chances are I'm pretty full. But that's, I would say that I do about 90% of the certainly private lessons and a lot of the clinics and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. I see your content, and I don't know how anybody could even argue or nitpick at the things that you put out there for free.
You would be shocked sometimes.
Okay, let me rephrase that, because for us being in operation for just less than a month, I still hear it now from people. And I'm like, guys, no offense. Like, this is a hobby for the two of us. We've been so fortunate that people like yourself and a million others like are willing to come on the show and just give us 20 or 30 minutes. Like, it's not perfect. So I can only imagine someone like you and the following that you have compared to something like just started like us. Like, okay, I get it that some people can be absolute, ridiculous, but the stuff that you put out that's for free. I mean, it is like, I feel like if I was struggling with any part of my game, if I just scroll through your Instagram handle, like, I'm finding the drill, no question asked.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting in front of the mirror and I'm trying. Like, that stuff that you put out, I mean, it is amazing. And can I ask, like, is it just you that's handling all that?
Yeah.
That's incredible, dude. That's incredible. I can't lie. Like,
he said that so
Ryan,
defeated. Like, yeah.
I tell Ryan all the time,
me.
like, I'm like blown. I said, you're not going to believe this, but we got Ryan Hager on, and like, just scroll through his Instagram. He's like, dude, I follow him. I'm like, I know. Like, let's go through the drill.
Yeah.
Like, it's mind boggling to me that, like, how much work something like that must take you on top of the constant instruction that you're giving out. Like, I'm learning just from the beginning, like, that's a full-time job in itself, the social media aspect of things.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's a lot. Yeah.
You've taken that and just ran with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a lot of time and work, certainly. I mentioned, I wanted to go more the teaching route. And when I decided that, I was like, well, I got to find some way to market myself. And at the time I was fresh out of college and living half the year in Miami, working for Jim McLean. And as an assistant, you're making pennies down there. So I basically had zero money, and Instagram's free. So I just kind of started making this page thinking if I kind of brand myself as a teacher, people want to take lessons. And it was a very slow burn, but COVID, I had the time to, when everything was shut down, kind of put a little more time into it. So things certainly grew quite a lot faster during that time. But, took those 8 weeks or whatever it was to sort of create my girlfriend's a graphic designer. So she and I sat down and mapped out a plan, and she helped me with all the sort of branding for my website and the Instagram and everything. And yeah, it's kind of taken off. It took forever for me to get somebody though from Instagram that followed me to take a lesson. It took like 4 years. And a single person took a lesson that followed me. Like, that was just a random follower.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible to me, because let me just put it out there for the audience. If you don't follow Ryan on Instagram, it's Ryan Hager _PGA. Like, I'm telling you,
must follow.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. If you're a golf nerd like us, like Ryan and I are, it's a no-brainer to click that button and follow him, because like, you just learn and become so educated just by watching them. It boggles my mind when I go through that, because I couldn't imagine that if someone on Instagram doesn't look at that and say, like, wow, this guy clearly knows what he's talking about. Like, why?
Oh yeah, you'd be surprised.
I get it. Maybe on social media, people think like I know it all. Like, I can probably see that. But for any normal person that is like a golfer and cares about their game, like, if that's for free, I can only imagine if I was able to get underneath the camera with you and you'd be like, Mike, like, it's not good. Because I'm sitting in the mirror looking like I look like Tiger.
That's that's kind of the double-edged sword of it all. Is, there's certainly better follows out there than than me. And if it's free, it's like, it can only be so good. And the struggle I think a lot of people have is the absorption of information, and just like you're just funneling it. It's, if you get on the wrong algorithm, you can spend 3 hours looking at all kinds of different videos where the information's all different, and then you just get confused. So I always say that's kind of why, my day job of teaching lessons, I don't think will ever really go away, because you need that personalized sort of trained eye to look at you and figure out, here specifically are your issues. But that's also why I try to make the videos as idiot proof, I guess, as possible, and do my best to clearly state, if you have this very specific problem, try this.
Yeah.
And I try to make sure that the people watching are not thinking like, everyone should try this. It's only if you are shanking it or hooking it or whatever your very specific issue is, give this a try. And if you're not doing that and you try it, I'm not liable. It's
So,
like, it's your own fault.
So Ryan, speak of one of those idiots, I found you over COVID as well. Again, probably laying on the couch or sitting outside or something when we weren't allowed to go anywhere, and started following you back then. And actually just this, like early spring this year, I came across a video of yours. I have a tendency to power fade the ball. And the power fade sneaks in there quite a bit, but you had a drill in there that I really, for whatever reason, and I think you said it, like, you can get kind of confused with the information, but I think a lot of the time the information is the same. It's just how it's being said to you. And for whatever reason, something that, because how to fix a fade, I would think there's a limited amount of ways to do that. And just whatever you said resonated with me. Now, I don't hit a hook, but when I'm fading the ball more, I legitimately go back and think of the video that you had put out about just throwing your right hand to 1 o'clock on a clock. And that was like, for whatever reason, that resonated a little more to me than other things that I've searched or seen or tried. And I'm still as bad a golfer as I was before, but I don't fade it as much. So thank you for that.
Well, that's good to hear. It's good to hear. Glad something else. But I mean, there's a famous quote, I think, by Arnold Palmer, talking about how deceptively simple golf is, yet it's endlessly complicated. And it is. There's only 9 shots available to any golfer. There's a high fade, a low fade, and a medium fade, and then there's the same thing for straight and for draw. So your options are limited, and you can only have one. I guess you could have 2 of 3 problems. You either slice it too much, you hook it too much, or your contact's not good. And as far as solving those problems go, there certainly are not endless solutions to the 3 problems, but there are a lot of solutions. Like you say, though, they all are kind of, if you slice it too much, you have a face to path relationship that spins the ball for a righty off to the right. And the solution is making the ball spin more to the left until it's going straight. And then if you overdo that, it's going to start to hook, and then, it's a balancing act. So I think if you can understand that, my job's honestly not that hard. I can't fix my own swing, but I can do my best with other people. But
let's talk a little
hey,
bit.
don't say that, because 70, would you go 73, 70, 73 at Hollywood is no slouch there. So
yeah, well, thanks.
Let's talk a little bit about your season. Obviously, I did some research. I pulled up, the NJPGA results to see, how you played, and I like to do some background and see, how guys fared more or less, and then kind of get your feedback, because I know ultimately you're not just a DOI, you're a competitor and you want to play good golf. And, that matters to some extent. To some pros, it matters less. But talk a little bit about how your game is, how much you put an emphasis on, you individually, and then like your season as a whole.
Yeah, thanks. No, this was as a professional, my best season that I've had. I think I ended up 14th or 15th in the points list, which is good enough to get me in the state open next year, which is exciting for me. And competition certainly matters. I've found it to be a challenging thing to teach and play at a level that I'm happy with. I'm a fairly analytical person, and when I'm playing, that can take over and make it hard to play golf and not golf swing. So I've worked hard on some mental stuff around that this year, and that's certainly helped. But yeah, no, I care a lot about playing performance. I love to play. I don't get to play all that much other than some events. I think I played like 28 times this year, which by my standards is not very much.
Yeah, I would have guessed. I would have guessed way more. I would have. It's crazy when I hear you guys don't play that much because, quite frankly, you guys live in at the golf course, and to think that you guys aren't able to get out and play, like I guess there's sometimes I'm just like I'm dumbfounded, really.
Yeah, there's a couple hurdles for me specifically. I like to say I eat what I kill. So if I go play golf, that's door to door, like 6 hours of lost revenue. I weigh the, pros and cons of that. Probably too much. Demand has been high, so I have to like book people so far out in advance too that I almost feel guilty if I'm taking slots away from folks that really want help. And then on top of that, Plainfield, as nice of a course as it is, it's strictly walking only unless you have a medical need for a cart. And so when I'm done after 8 or 9 hours of lessons in the 100-degree sun, schlepping it with my bag on my shoulder sounds like about the last thing I'd like to do at that time of day. So I usually just go home and hang out with my dog and my girlfriend at that point. So there's obstacles. It's cost of doing business, but I generally play a lot this time of year. So had a couple of recent golf trips and stuff, which are fun. And,
I saw those amazing pictures, dude.
Yeah.
I probably could have commented on every single one of them, to be dead honest with you. But I didn't want to be that maniac that's like, who is this guy that comments on every one? But I'm like going through, I'm like, that's pure.
Doesn't bother me.
How good is that?
I know. Like I said, we're well connected. So we're able to go see some nice places and save all that for the fall.
Yeah. I mean, I guess so. I didn't know Plainfield was walking only. I didn't know that, but
it's one of the few.
36 there too, right?
No, just 18.
Just 18.
There's a 9-hole like municipal course that the club technically owns. That's across the street, but it's not really. It's not the same caliber or anything like that.
So obviously that finishing in the top 15 is such like a sigh of relief because the qualifiers and what I've learned is I've started to dabble in the competitive side since COVID. It's kind of like fueled my fire a little bit too. And I was fortunate this year to qualify for the state open and playing it. And those qualifiers are just like shootouts more or less. And if you don't play really well that one day, that's such a struggle. But without having to worry about that, that's got to be like a nice sigh of relief that you can just look at the calendar, book that in advance and say, hey, you know what, I get to go and I don't have to worry about finding a qualifying site that works. Of course I like, so on and so forth.
For sure. It's I guess a weight lifted. I've never qualified for it before. So I've tried, I think 7 times and I've missed it every time by a couple of strokes. I've notoriously am not very good at qualifiers for whatever reason. Not that that's a bad excuse, but I've never I've never have played very well in those rounds. So yeah, no, that's a big I guess weight lifted.
Yeah,
I'm
no doubt.
certainly
Yeah,
looking forward to
no
it.
doubt.
I don't know where it is next year, but I hope it's somewhere decent.
It always is. It
Yeah.
always is. I mean, it especially. I mean, where it was this year, I've never played the Ridge prior to going there, and that
I
place,
love that place.
and Ryan was always one time. He's like, dude, you're gonna fall in love with it. It's special.
It's really good.
You know, and I don't hit the ball naturally very far. Like I'm lucky if I get it like 275 on like a good day. And I'm just so happen to playing with Aaron Aceto, who's another DOI up at Knickerbocker, and
Yeah.
then Dean Greiserman. And there was one hole that I told my caddy that he's a member at Manasquan. I'm like, Bri, I just pumped that as good as I can hit it. Gun where Dean is in front of me. He was legitimately 74 yards in front of my ball.
Oh God.
It was like mind-boggling.
That is not what you want.
Yeah, you're just like, and I said to my buddy, I'm like, I can't hit that any better. Like that is as pure as I can hit it. It's just amazing, like how good everybody is.
I know. Everyone hits it so far now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. Why don't you talk a little bit about Plainfield? Maybe like the history of that place. What's it about? You know, to an average person who's never played there or can't even get on there, but sees and hears the good things about it. Why don't you talk a little bit about that place itself?
Yeah, it's a awesome facility just from top to bottom. The membership's very welcoming, and that's been a big draw for me to stay there. Just kind people, a lot of families. It's very I don't know that relaxed is the right word, but you're not on eggshells when you're there like you would be if you were at Augusta. You don't feel like you're breaking rules every corner you walk around. It's a very comfortable, place to go. And then, it's an 18-hole Donald Ross, just classic, really slopey, undulating greens and fairways. The biggest protection of the course is certainly the greens. Not overly long, roughly 7,000 from all the way back at a par 72. And it's just fun. It's got a lot of character. You hit every club in your bag, and there's a couple holes where you could try to drive the green, and a 650-yard par 5 and everything in between. I think our longest par 3 is like 230, and our shortest is like 130. So there's a good mix of everything, and conditions are ridiculous. Our superintendent, this guy Travis Pauly, he's very sought after. Every time a superintendent job opens up, he gets a phone call, and he's loyal and does a great job. And so the course is always just money, and tradition of walking only. So there's not a lot of wear and tear from carts, and it's pure. There's huge fleet of caddies, so for the most part, members are walking with caddies. And, it's really great.
What if it's like, I don't know, say it's 2:00 on a Saturday afternoon, right?
And nope. You can carry your clubs, but you can't just jump in a cart and go play.
And
do they not even own carts? Sorry,
we have like 15. We have like 15 carts. Yeah.
Wow. So like if a member, I guess the membership knows that
maybe like 20 something carts.
Yeah. So if the member knows that come Saturday at 2:00, if the caddy master doesn't have anybody in the barn, or
you gotta carry your clubs. Yeah. But we always do. We have in the summertime, we'll have guys till 5 p.m. if you want to go play at evening 9. And people, I mean, we sell really light bags if you want to just take like 8 clubs and 4 balls or something. And
that's awesome, because I can see a lot of, sometimes members can be a little, I want to ride, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, but obviously the membership there knows that like just not going to fly. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a tradition. they're, as the membership's getting a little younger these days, I have a feeling that that'll maybe change. I think you need the young, driven, successful guys from New York, and if they hear that, if they buzz out there after work on a Thursday and they have to walk after, starting their day at 5 a.m. in the city, they might not want to join. So I think, there's potentially going to be, and I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but I feel like times are changing, and that'll happen at some point. I don't know when, but yeah, it is. It's a great tradition unless you're the director of instruction.
So right, like golfers are traditionally, kind of quirky by nature, and athletes are superstitious also by nature. When you're playing in competition, is there something that's like quirky or odd or superstitious that you do or have or keep with you that you can think of for us?
A strong cocktail before I tee off. No,
because the answer is always yes. I just don't want to share it because I know that it's weird.
So I pretty much refuse to put more than a ball marker, a divot repair tool, and a short tee and a long tee in my pocket. I don't like to have a bunch of stuff rattling around. I would say that, I guess.
Okay.
I'm somewhat of a creature of habit with that. I don't know that it's a superstition, but I never have more than that, and I often don't have less than that. I hate being the guy who's like borrowing a quarter from people on every hole. So I'm usually like, I got my stuff, and then if I break a tee or whatever, I'll replace it. But I think that's about as superstitious as it gets.
So I appreciate you coming on. I really do.
Yeah. Thank you so